From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
And the parents of the missing girl cling desperately to hope, while a copper takes improper payments in a thick brown envelope.
Don't Buy the Sun. That's Murdoch's Son by the legendary British singer-songwriter Billy Bragg. We'll spend the hour with Bragg discussing his new song on the Murdoch media empire to his long history of art and activism, from supporting unions to opposing war to his reflections on the mass attack in Norway.
As the news came out, it was absolutely clear that in the targets that he chose, and let's be honest, the bomb in Oslo was merely a distraction for what he was trying to do, which was kill a generation of Norwegian leftist activists.
Billy Bragg for the hour. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The White House and congressional leaders have reached an agreement to raise the federal borrowing limit and avoid a default on the national debt. The plan centers around a $2.4 trillion spending cut over 10 years, overseen by a bipartisan committee. If Congress fails to approve the panel's proposals, a so-called trigger mechanism would be enacted to automatically slash federal spending. Unveiling the deal Sunday night, President Obama said the agreement was born out of a need to compromise.
Now, is this the deal I would have preferred? No. I believe that we could have made the tough choices required on entitlement reform and tax reform right now, rather than through a special congressional committee process. But this compromise does make a serious down payment on the deficit reduction we need and gives each party a strong incentive to get a balanced plan done before the end of the year. Most importantly, it will allow us to avoid default and end the crisis that Washington imposed on the rest of America.
In a major victory for Republicans, the deal includes no means to increase government revenues, such as a tax hike on the wealthy. That could effectively kill any chances of raising taxes on the rich, as Republicans on the bipartisan deficit panel are unlikely to approve them. During the talks, President Obama reportedly offered to reduce Medicare spending by slowly raising the eligibility age to 67 from the current 65, and to cut Social Security by altering the cost of living formula used to calculate benefits. Congressional leaders are presenting the plan to their caucuses today in the hopes of a vote before Tuesday's deadline to raise the federal debt ceiling. The top Democrat in the House, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, said she cannot guarantee House Democrats will support the deal.
This bill has a long future, 9 years, 10 years, whatever it turns out to be, has ramifications even beyond that decade. So we'll all have to take a look, and we all may not be able to support it, or none of us may be able to support it, but we'll wait and see, and we're open to what comes down, because, again, the stakes are very high here.
Both the Progressive Caucus and the Black Caucus have rejected the deal. In a statement, Progressive Caucus leader Raul Grijalva of Arizona said, quote, "This deal does not even attempt to strike a balance between more cuts for the working people of America and a fairer contribution from millionaires and corporations. I will not be a part of it," he said. Speaking on the Senate floor, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders denounced the agreement.
Despite Democratic control over the White House, despite Democratic control over the Senate, despite overwhelming opposition from the American people, a small minority of the members of the Republican-controlled House have successfully pushed an extreme right-wing agenda onto the American political landscape. It is an ideology which believes that, despite the fact that the rich are getting richer, the middle class is shrinking, and poverty is increasing, all of the burden for deficit reduction should rest on working people.
The Congressional Black Caucus, meanwhile, is urging President Obama to invoke the 14th Amendment, affirming the validity of the national debt as a means to bypass Congress. In a speech on the Senate floor, Senator Bernie Sanders also backed the 14th Amendment proposal.
The Constitution is very clear in saying that the debts of the United States, quote unquote, shall not be questioned. The President swears an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, and many constitutional scholars believe that the 14th Amendment gives the President the authority and responsibility to pay our debts regardless of the dysfunctionality of the U.S. Congress.
In international news, relief efforts continue in the Horn of Africa amidst a famine threatening millions of people. UNICEF Emergency Programs Deputy Director Dermot Carty said immediate interventions needed to avoid an escalation in deaths.
We have been warning for many years that the situation is especially fragile there. Take the weather conditions, multiply that by the ongoing conflict, add in the problems associated with rising food prices because of food shortages, you have a very bad situation. I think we need to continually focus on what the issue is, and the issue is that children are dying and will continue to die unless we make sufficient interventions in the immediately short term through the delivery of humanitarian assistance.
The Gaddafi regime has condemned NATO for a deadly bombing on the headquarters of Libyan state television in Tripoli. Khaled Bazelia, the head of Libya's English network, said the attack killed 3 people.
3 of our colleagues were murdered and 15 injured while performing their professional duties as Libyan journalists. NATO admitted the crime, citing silencing Gaddafi propaganda machine as a justification for such murderous act. We are the employees of the official Libyan TV. We are not a military target.
At least 142 people have been killed over the weekend in Syria as government forces continue a crackdown on protesters. Most of the violence has come in the flashpoint city of Hama, where at least 100 people were killed Sunday alone. Syrian troops have also moved into the gas and oil hub of Deir ez-Zor, killing at least 25 people and wounding 65 others. Witnesses report the government's used tanks, artillery, and anti-aircraft weapons against Syrian protesters. A pair of U.S. hikers jailed for 2 years in Iran could finally be seeing a verdict in their case. The attorney for Shane Bauer and Josh Fatal said he expects a decision will be handed down in the next week.
Keeping in mind that they have been detained for 2 years, now I wish the trial would come to an end. And if they will sentence them, their sentence will not exceed the 2 years they have already served. I am very hopeful because there is no reason for the continuation of their detention.
News Corp executive James Murdoch's expected to again be called before the British Parliament to answer questions over whether he lied to lawmakers during his first appearance last month. A former editor at News of the World and News Corp's top legal officer have challenged Murdoch's testimony about how much he knew about the use of phone hacking by journalists working at newspapers owned by his father, Rupert Murdoch. The News of the World, meanwhile, is now being accused of hacking into the phone of the mother of another young girl abducted and murdered. This in July of 2000. British authorities say the paper's former editor, Rebecca Brooks, provided Sarah Payne with a phone as she campaigned for a sex offender law named after her slain daughter, also Sarah. Payne had vocally supported the News of the World when a phone hacking disclosure in another case forced the paper's closure last month. And thousands of people rallied in Washington, D.C. Saturday in support of public education and teachers' unions. The Save Our Schools rally was organized to criticize the Obama administration's education reform policies, which has emphasized initiatives including No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. Among the speakers to address the crowd was actor Matt Damon.
As I get older, I appreciate more and more the teachers that I had growing up. And I'm not alone. There are millions of people just like me. So the next time you're feeling down or exhausted or unappreciated or at the end of your rope, the next time you turn on the TV and see yourself being called overpaid, the next time you encounter some simple-minded, punitive policy that's been driven into your life by some corporate reformer who has literally never taught anyone anything. Please know that there are millions of us behind you.
The actor Matt Damon speaking to thousands of education activists in Washington, D.C. this weekend. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.